Good afternoon. My name is Sherine Ibrahim. I'm a sustainable energy specialist with CDB. Um, Today, we're having one second. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the Caribbean Regional Electricity Grid Interconnection and Renewable Energy Scaling Project. This is something like an ambitious project which is initiated by CDB. Talking about the key challenges in the Caribbean. So since morning, I've been following up all the speeches and all the presentations. They were talking about the theoretical part of the climate change and the impact and so on. So we're trying to do something which is maybe tackling the main cause of the problem in the Caribbean, small SIDS. Definitely you understand that the key challenges starts with the heavy reliance on the imported fossil fuels. This impose a very big burden on the finances of the SIDS in the Caribbean. The low energy security, so there is some sort of non-secured energy all the time for the small islands in the Caribbean. Extreme, the slow progress. For the current time being, it's only 12%. So it was supposed to be 32% in 2021, and it should be going up to 55% in 2030. Which is far low behind the progress. Of course, the inadequate policy and regulatory frameworks, so there is a lack of policy alignments, lack of regulatory frameworks for the operation of the electricity systems and the utilities in the small SIDS in the Caribbean. The weak investment environment, so there is a fragile finance of the governments there in the Caribbean, plus there is a lack of the investment funding available. The partial financing options as well, so this is one of the other key challenges. The aging T&D, the transmission and distribution systems, are totally non-updated, so this is also another key challenge for the energy security in the SIDS in the Caribbean. And finally is the limited capacity. So the limited capacity of the operations and maintenance staffs, and of course the upgrading of the existing electricity power grids. So these are all key challenges which every single state in the Caribbean are suffering from. So CDB has an initiative called the ASSER 2030, which means an acronym, the Accelerated Sustainable Energy and Resilience Transition. 2030. So this is some sort of CDB is trying to play a greater leadership and advocacy role between the SIDS in the Caribbean in order to encourage the having more energy security and to scale up the use of renewable energy resources in the region. So these ASSER 2030 is mainly depending on the dialogues between the main key stakeholders, the transformative initiatives, and the strategic partnerships as well. So as you can see that there are many assertives here for the CDB. It's talking about the e-mobility, integrated utility services model, the geothermal initiative, the offshore wind use for the offshore wind, which is really huge and very potential in the region, plus the, we call it the CREG-RES project as well. Now the CREG-RES project is, according to the map on the left, this is just only conceptual map, and it shows the connection between the East Caribbean region, all the small islands, and they are all interconnected between red lines. So the main purpose is, this is not a project of interconnection like always talking about submarine cabling and interconnection between the SIDS. This is just starting with the concept of the energy integration, collaboration between the small islands in the Caribbean in order to have a full economic vision or future for all the states there. So the objectives of the project is the resilient and creating a resilient and reliable energy infrastructure, scaling the use of the renewable energy, security and stability of the energy systems, reducing the region's carbon footprint and mitigating the climate change. Although, personally speaking, I do not believe that the Caribbean states are they are victims of the climate change because they do not contribute anything to the climate change itself. So I was inspired by Her Excellency Ambassador Thompson this morning, that she was talking about that this was the byproduct and the Caribbean region is suffering from it, and this is true. So if we need to talk about the climate change, it doesn't start or it's not originating from the Caribbean, but it's impacting heavily the Caribbean states through the hurricanes and the different impacts which we can see from every day in the region. And finally is the regional energy trade, regional energy or regional economic development. So this is the main purpose, is to create a collaborative environment. Now, every state in the Caribbean, if individually they try to mitigate climate change, fight the climate change impact, do anything alone, it will never work. This project is something which is like a very huge puzzle, and it's going to start with small pieces. Nobody is going to see anything in the beginning, but slowly with time, things will start to focus and many people will start to see the effect and the results and the achievements at the end. Okay, so the timing. The timing for this project now is because, of course, everyone knows that the renewable energy cost is declining, is going down, so it became much more feasible to adopt. The energy security concerns, definitely, there is a lack of energy security. Many of the utilities in the Caribbean region, they are suffering from the non-updated infrastructure, from the high cost for updating and upgrading their systems, and of course the lack of financing. The global decarbonization requirements, again, but it's a must because every state, every country in the world now has an NDC, the National Determined Contribution for the GHG emissions, so this has to be considered. The regional cooperation and integration. So this is one of the things which is very important in order to create more resilient integrated energy systems. We are talking about submarine cables in order to share the countries which have abundance of renewable energy resources, mainly offshore wind and geothermal. Most of the, if we return back to the previous slide with the small conceptual map, most of the small states in the East Caribbean are volcanic mountains or volcanic small islands. So there is a huge amount of geothermal energy potential. There is also the offshore wind potential is very big, just only needs to be developed and more scaled up into their systems. And then once you start to fulfill the local demand, which is very small on the scale of each state by itself, in order to share it with the neighboring countries, if it's possible, because according to this map, the East Caribbean states, there are many, many of them, and all distances, we are talking about a total of 500-600 kilometers or miles. So this is not a big deal. So if it's feasible, then it's going to be followed up. Political commitment, there is a current political will between the states that to share the common resources, renewable energy resources, and to go into the collaborative mood. So as well as the international support and funding, many of the development organizations like CDB, mainly World Bank and IDB, Inter-American Development, plus the other funds like the Green Climate Fund, GCF, Climate Investment Fund, CIF, so they are available with the funding for such kind of projects. The bilateral aids like USAID, UK aid, and similars from other countries in the world. And a very important factor, the private sector. So public-private partnerships are essentials in order to make such kind of projects to go forward and to develop. Now, there are some international, the project is consistent with similar global trends. In the European Union, the Energy Union, this very strong trend in Europe, the African Renewable Energy Initiative, and the Inter-American Development Bank Mesoamerica project. So these are all similars and in parallel to the same concept of this project. Now the phases of this project, phase one, CDB already started the phase one, which is the roadmap. So this is not just only mere theory. We already started procurement to mobilize a global consultant in order to help CDB to get the vision or configuration of such kind of big project, because this is not a 2 years or 5 years project. This is something which may extend up to 2040 or 2050. So we are supposed to have a consultant very soon in order to help establish a roadmap. So the roadmap, this will include working groups, this will include feasibility studies, this will include many stakeholder engagement and discussions and dialogues, collection of data, see what can be done. I was a previous evaluator. So we always say what worked, what didn't, and why. And then we go to the lessons learned, and then we start to take these points and start to try to understand how things can go. So the most important thing is the roadmap. I have been asked before in a similar presentation previously in Miami a few months back that we know all of this. We know that there is a potential of renewable energy in the Caribbean, so what's all about? Yes, but there is no action. Nobody took action in the last 20, 30 years in order to develop this kind of things. Now, this is happening now. Not only this project, parallel to the Craigie Race project, there is a development in St. Kitts and Nevis, in Dominica, for the geothermal, in order to understand, because there was only a couple of wells which were made as just exploratory reasons. Now, we're trying to help and push for this kind of the development of renewable resources in order to see how we can develop it and start to create energy from it. And then, if it's abundant enough, then to be shared with nearby states and so on. So we have to go for the feasible and simple solutions. We cannot just jump and say, okay, we are going to do this and do, not to the unrealistic type of solutions. So phase one is roadmap. Phase two is resource and assessment planning. Phase one, I have to return back to it. We estimate that this may take a couple of years, let's say beginning of 25 till 27. So this is just only to know exactly what to be done. Resource assessment planning, this is phase two. Phase three is feasibility studies and the working groups between the states and the Caribbean region. Phase four, I personally consider it as the bottleneck. Phase four is policy and regulatory framework. In order to put every single regulator in every state in the Caribbean to be put all together on the same table and try to harmonize the policies and the regulatory frameworks for the utilities to work and how to integrate renewable energy, how to create new markets, how to analyze tariffs, incentives, and so on. This is a huge task, and this is not going to be easy, but I believe this would be, if we can pass this, then everything else could be possible. Phase five, investment and financing, this is available. As soon as everything else is known, roadmap, feasibility studies, policy, regulatory framework, at least to show that we are on the right track, the financing is, I'm not saying easy, but it's going to be available because everybody is going for this. Phase six is the infrastructure development. All of the East Caribbean or the Caribbean states, they have non-updated infrastructure, energy infrastructure or electricity infrastructure. They need to be updated, renewed, renovated, whatsoever. But this, it's an important phase as well. Renewable energy development or deployment, phase 8, phase 7. Phase 8 is the final one. This is just the performance and evaluation. Now the roadmap, which is phase 1, so this is mainly headed for the regional cooperation. We need to integrate all of the Caribbean states together in order to keep them under one objective, so that it's not only electricity interconnection or submarine cable project between A and B. No, it's much more than this. It's regional cooperation, and it includes the three main headings: the stakeholders' priorities. We need to understand, we need to have a dialogue, we need to have a talking with every key stakeholder, communities, what are the main priorities, and then to start to put it into the implementation section. Resource allocation, this is part of the feasibility studies as well, and strategic planning. What is next, what to be first, and we have, as I said, to fulfill the priorities of all the stakeholders. Now, these are the items of the roadmap, the policy analysis, institutional reforms. I believe McMaster can do a great deal of having this institutional reforms and the policy regulators training. This is very important part of such kind of projects, and we believe that McMaster can contribute to this kind of effort. The financing investment framework, capacity building is very important, well, and stakeholders engagement up to the end. Technical benefits, it's very well understood, the energy security, transition, the grid stability and reliability, and operational flexibility between the states in the Caribbean, plus the cross-border electricity trade and regional cooperation, which is the main objective of this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.